As South Africans eagerly await the further easing of lockdown restrictions to level 3, the number of people infected with the virus is still growing, and also the possibility of companies closing down and retrenchment happening abound. As companies prepare to open their doors again, there are many who are either closing their doors permanently or letting go of employees, although President Cyril Ramaphosa indicated that no one should lose their job during the lockdown. Some companies don't have a choice. So how can companies and employees deal with this? Let's ask Devan Moonsamy, who is CEO of ICHAF Training Institute. Thank you very much for coming through, Devan.
Thank you very much for having me, Colin.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's pick up from that press conference of the South African Revenue Service, where they said that companies had declared upfront that they wouldn't make it back after the lockdown because of this, shall one term it, the first cut that is the deepest of the lockdown, on how it's going to impact their operations. So now, as these companies shut their doors, what really needs to happen as they anticipate to let employees go? And on the other hand, how should employees prepare themselves or embrace the reality?
Well, it's normal course of practice for most organizations who are experiencing challenges. What happens is that resources, human resources, are arguably one of the biggest chunks of money that's going to be allocated to that segment of any business. So as a result of extended lockdowns, rightfully so, most organizations are now looking at ways that they could be more sustainable in the long run, in the long term. That's by way of a few months or a couple of years. And in doing so, they're looking back at cutting on some of the employees within certain organizations. So departments are sort of merging. You're having restructuring taking place. So executives are going back to the various departments now and having a look in terms of whether there are redundant positions, all in an effort for these businesses to stay afloat over the next few months to a year, because it's very trying indeed. And yes, there will be many casualties, Colin.
So now, if there are going to be many casualties, in terms of those who will be getting severance packages, or those who might take early retirement, what should they do in terms of taking their money from the companies? I remember, as part of research for doing this interview, one 61-year-old was saying that he was about to retire, but then he was thinking of not taking his pension at all and also just receive the salary for the rest of his life instead of taking 1/3 or a portion of his pension payout.
Mm-hmm. There are many different options. You'll see the organizations should possibly, most of them would possibly be offering to people who've been with the business for 10, 20, 30 years, in some cases even 40 years, more seasoned individuals, and those people are on the verge of retiring. There are several options available for those people. Now, some businesses will say to staff who've been in the business for a very long time, you are going to be retiring soon, so we're going to be offering you early retirement. And it can be attractive to some people because most organizations should have a retrenchment policy, and I'm going to encourage employees now to look at that retrenchment policy to assess what is contained in that document and how they will be paid. In some cases, it'll be 1 week for every year you've worked with an organization. So they will be having access to this money. And apart from that, they will need some solid, sound advice in terms of financial planning. Now, most people would be tempted to take a lump sum and then go and invest it in these uncertain times, and possibly even look at becoming an entrepreneur. I would like to advise those who are in this situation to seek advice in terms of taking this pension out. What are the avenues available to you in terms of how to sustain yourself? Because realistically, we don't know. Are we going to be at home for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? Nobody knows when our clock's going to expire. However, if we don't plan effectively after this, money may just expire faster than we do.
Another problems that employees are facing in terms of how they're going to go home with that portion of money is the hope that they will get employment in the future. Well, what should people do in as far as not giving up too easily, in as far as, this premature way of decision making, in as far as using your last cent that is between you and your last day on earth?
I've spoken about this in some training programs, and I've spoken about it widely in other sessions and platforms. We have to be very rational at this time in our lives. It is a pandemic. Times are very uncertain. It's going to be very tempting for us to want to go out and spend money on certain things that doesn't necessarily fall into the must-have zone or the absolute essentials. I'm going to encourage South Africans now to take a very serious look at what constitutes the nice to haves and what we must simply have right now. Times are very uncertain. So therefore, this is a great starting point for us to put pen to paper and to be able to assess now what is most crucial. Now, some organizations may be saying, we're not going to be engaging with you for 5 days out of the week or a full 20 days or 30 days out of the month. If you worked over weekends or 24 days, we're only going to be engaging with you for 2 or 3 days, thus making it a big gap in terms of what you were earning previously. So you might only get 30%, 40% of your wages or your salary that you were earning before. Again, we've got to go back to the drawing board and we've got to be able to assess what is most crucial in my household in terms of spending. For most South Africans, it would be things like groceries, as I mentioned before, a roof over your head, healthcare, and possibly whatever the needs of the kids are. We could always look at budgeting and financing for this turbulent period now, because after we weather the storm, we could always go back into the work market and maybe find another job. But now's the crucial stages for us to be very, very vigilant in terms of how we are spending.
Right. Just before you go, I just want to get your gauge in as far as what Corporate South Africa is doing in as far as exit interviews or pre-retirement interviews and counseling for those who will be let go. Let's take this scenario. Most of the time there would be celebration and excitement during the farewell ceremony, but you find that after 2-3 months, people go into post-retirement depression, and the next thing you'll be having a memorial service. How should companies deal with these problems?
The way people are being retrenched at the moment, or the way restructuring is taking place, is not ideal. I mean, there is no such thing as an ideal restructure or retrenchment. I can almost imagine that CEOs at the moment are most likely having sleepless nights. Executives are probably having sleepless nights. In fact, the whole globe is suffering under this pandemic. So it's not just uniquely South Africans. So we know that it's a very for lack of a better word, a very morbid time at the moment for employers who are having to let go, as well as employees. So usually if there's a retirement, there's going to be fanfare, there's going to be cake, people are going to be waving you goodbye. Don't expect much of that now. Now this is the process. Section 189 is now coming into effect with some organizations. There are going to be consults. HR departments are going to sit with their team members, refer them to UIF, and give them the retrenchment policy. So what's going to happen now is more communication in a very, I would say, structured, methodical approach, as opposed to waving you goodbye and wishing you all the best. I also am going to encourage employees not to burn bridges. We want to get angry. We want to be a little bit frustrated as far as this is concerned. And of course, rightfully so. We're not going to be getting some of our income. But remember, burning bridges is not, and maybe taking to Twitter or other social media to backlash or talk badly about the employee who's retrenched you is not the best method for relationship building moving forward. Remember, they might just need you in 6 months or 8 months or a year, when the organization is doing better. And I'm of the opinion that they will look for the people that they have retrenched previously to join the organization again because they know the business best. So don't burn bridges, and we have to be extremely rational. And also I have to say to South Africans, try to put your emotional and your mental well-being first. Anxiety is going to run quite high. And once you put this at bay and talk to friends and family and establish a support circle, it will be that much easier to deal with.
A very interesting thought there. Thank you so much, Devan, for making time to speak to us about how companies and employees should handle the retrenchment process. And Devan Moonsamy is the CEO of the ICHAF Training Institute. And remember, what you tweet today should